Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome, Fun Ying, to our special event, Every Child Welcome. And we're going to have a fantastic afternoon. We're going to be hearing from experts from the UK, from Hong Kong. We're going to be hearing from children. We are going to pack in as much information as we can into our time together. Now, the first thing I need to tell you is if you would like to be hearing this in Cantonese, that is possible. There is a link going up right now where you can click on it and you can be watching this and hearing everything we're saying in Cantonese. We're so grateful that we have simultaneous translation available. And thank you for these incredible translators who have the superpower of listening to us speaking and saying our words in the beautiful Cantonese language at the same time. So you can listen in that way straight away, and it will be fantastic to see you. Um, we love it when you make comments. Maybe someone says something that you agree vigorously with. Well, tell us about it. That can be really lovely. We've seen some wonderful connections made in the comment section. And so if you're on YouTube, just use the comment section there to tell us who you are, how you heard about today, where in the country you are, how are you finding life in the UK. Feel free to make use of those comments. And as the speakers say something, maybe you have a question or a comment that you want to make it there. And I'll do my best to be able to watch what's going on in the stream and watch your comments as well. We're going to have a fantastic afternoon together. My name is Krish Kandaya, and I am the director of UK HK, which is a coalition of different charities that have come together to support new arrivals from Hong Kong as they arrive in the UK. Our vision, our goal, our ambition is to make sure people from Hong Kong feel very welcome in the United Kingdom. Whatever brings you here, whatever your reasons for leaving Hong Kong or starting life here, we are here for you. We want this to be a fantastic experience. And we know that if your children feel welcome, then you as a whole family or a whole household will feel welcome too. And so that's why we've been running these sessions. Today's session is part of our stream that we call educational integration. And another key part of that stream has been the production of this fantastic book, the Welcome to the UK book. And it's full of beautiful things. It's my wife and I, we kind of wrote the text. Someone else translated it into Cantonese. Mina, who is an incredibly gifted illustrator, has come up with these fantastic little illustrations. And we're just very grateful for a wonderful designer that's made this book really accessible. It's aimed at children who are aged between 8 and 12. And our hope is that they will feel more welcome in the UK because of this book. So if you would like a copy, let us know and we'll get a copy sent to you. We love it if you want to order multiple copies. Maybe you're part of a community group or a church or a school that has lots of children from Hong Kong in it. Come and make use of this fantastic resource. Now, today's event is sponsored by the Department for Levelling Up and Communities. That's a government body that exists particularly at community integration. That's their goal. But we also made sure that what we're doing really chimes in with the Department for Education. And so we're delighted that today we have a special greeting, just a short one, from our Children's Minister, Will Quint MP. And so you have a chance to hear from him now, and then I'll take you through the rest of our programme.
Sorry that I can't be there with you all in person at today's event, but I wanted to take this opportunity, albeit virtually, to give a warm welcome to all the children and families who've travelled from Hong Kong to the UK. Since the UK HK scheme opened in January last year to British nationals overseas and their dependents, we've had over 113,000 applications processed. And many of these are children who are now successfully integrated into our communities and schools across the UK. And I'm proud to say that this department has been championing the right that every child in the UK has to an education. We've worked closely with local authorities and schools to ensure that every child who's arrived from Hong Kong and overseas has a school place. We've supported those who are disadvantaged by extending the provision of free school meals to children from households that are on low income. And through the national funding formula, we've been able to provide support to children who need additional help learning the English language. Our priority is to ensure that all children and families from Hong Kong are given the opportunity to realise their potential and achieve the best outcomes. I'd like to finish by thanking UK HK for for the remarkable work they've done to ensure that new arrivals from Hong Kong are given the tools and support they need, not only to feel settled and welcomed, but to be able to thrive within our UK communities. So I hope the event goes well, and I look forward to hearing how it goes from officials tomorrow.
Thank you, Minister. Will Quince, really passionate about offering that welcome to the United Kingdom to people from Hong Kong. So I hope you feel that government is for you. Our little network of charities, churches and civil society groups, we are for you. And I'm hoping you're experiencing schools are for you. They want you to thrive here in the United Kingdom. But it can be difficult. It can be difficult to cross cultures. We're going to hear from someone who's an absolute expert in what she's going to explain are third culture children. I would describe myself as a third culture child. My mum and dad were from India and Malaysia, and I grew up here in the United Kingdom, and I didn't feel that I completely fit in, particularly as I was an older child in primary school and then later at secondary school. I didn't really feel like I fit in at home because I wasn't Indian or Malaysian, and I wasn't actually fully British either. I was something in between. I was what I might describe as a third culture child. And we're going to be digging into what that means in a moment after we've watched a little video. Because today, we really want to make sure that we're hearing from children themselves. We have a little phrase that we use often in the organizations I work for. It's nothing about us without us. We want to make sure that children have been included in this conversation. We're not just talking about them, but we're talking with them. So let's watch a little video. We're going to be hearing each in different sections from these lovely kids that we met who have moved to the UK from Hong Kong. So let's hand it over to them, and then I'll introduce you to Tanya Crossman.
I'm 10 and studying year 5. 3. Yeah, year 3. Yeah. I'm 10 years old and I'm in year 5. I am 8 years old and I am year 4.
I'm 11 years old. I'm in year 6. And I'm a 4th grader and 8 years old.
I'm year 4 and I'm 9 years old. I've been UK for 1 year and 4 months.
Good. It's good. UK is good because people are nice, kind,
and friendly.
Friendly, yeah.
I like it because school is more relaxing and there's not much homework.
I find the life in UK a bit hard. The English lessons I quite sometimes struggle a lot. It's easy on math.
I like the different types of foods here because I've never tried it in Hong Kong, like British breakfast. My friends are really nice. We mostly play games with each other, like chess and puzzles. I make new friends here and I like to play with them because they are very kind.
I find my time very enjoyable as my friends, whenever it's online or when in school, they are just as friendly as ever. But they are some of the best friends I've had ever since the friends I have from Hong Kong. I have been making new friends in school.
I have 6 friends.
I sometimes play football, basketball, or maybe even catch. And that's what I do in break time.
I used to figure skate in Hong Kong and I really enjoyed it.
And I hope that in the future I can figure skate with some of my friends.
In Hong Kong, I always eat sushi, and I sometimes go to the beaches in Hong Kong. The beaches in Hong Kong is lovely.
Beautiful. Let me just say that Hong Kong children are unbelievably cute, and we're so delighted that your children are studying alongside our kids in school. They're going to scouts and clubs, and they're just here. We're grateful for that, and we'll be hearing from those children throughout our time together. Yeah, you'll be seeing more of those cute little faces. Now, I want you to give a very warm welcome to Tanya Crossman. Tanya Crossman is a third culture children's consultant, and she deserves all sorts of honor because she is joining us live from Australia. And I think that means it's about 1:11 in the morning. Is that right, Tanya?
That is correct, yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your work. I've read the Third Culture Children's book that you guys have created, and I found it really revealing. It helped me understand a little bit about myself, and it helped me think about how we might be more welcoming to children that are coming from different cultures to the UK. So it's fabulous work you're doing. Thanks for staying up late. We look forward to hearing your presentation. And friends, don't forget, there's going to be opportunity for you to ask questions. That's the fun part of being a live webinar. So just type your questions into YouTube and let us know what you're interested in, and we'll do our best to help ask those to Tanya. But Tanya, over to you. Thanks again.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm delighted to have a chance to talk to you all tonight and to share a little bit about what I've learned in 17 years working with cross-cultural kids and cross-cultural families, especially in my case in Asia, in China, in Cambodia, in other places. So tonight I'm going to talk to you a bit about, well, tonight for me, this afternoon for you. I'm going to talk a bit about cross-cultural kids. So cross-cultural kids, this is any kind of person who has interacted with multiple cultures, and that is absolutely going to include every child who's moving from Hong Kong to the UK. To start us off, I think we need to start with the foundation of what we mean when we talk about cultures. If we're moving from one culture to another, what is culture? There are two main aspects to culture. There's the things that are outwardly obvious, the things that we can see. So the food that we eat, the way that we dress, the languages that we speak. But then there's also our invisible assumptions that make up our cultures. This includes our values, what we think are the most important things in life, and our strategies, how we succeed in life. These are the things that we teach to our children in our families and in our classrooms. We teach them what it means to be a good child and a good citizen. So how we learn culture, well, with those outward things, we can watch other people and we can copy them. But with the invisible assumptions, we can absorb some of it, but mostly it comes in community. We learn our values through our communities, through the people around us, through not just our parents, not just our teachers, but by being in a group of people who share the same values and reinforce those values to us over time. Now, a cross-cultural kid is any person who has meaningful interaction with more than one culture before the age of 18. This could happen in lots of different ways. So Krish told you about how for him that happened within his own family. He had parents who came from different cultures and he was being raised in another culture. For me, this happened when my family moved overseas when I was 13, and then we moved back again. When you are a cross-cultural kid, what happens is that you get that reinforcement from community in more than one way, in lots of different ways. So cross-cultural kids learn lessons about how the world works while living in between places, people, and cultures. these lessons about how the world works, these different values and different strategies, the fact that the world has more than one way of working, more than one answer to the questions of life. This is a formative experience for a CCK, for a cross-cultural kid. A formative experience meaning it's part of who they are, it's part of what makes them who they are and forms who they are. Now, there are lots of different kinds of cross-cultural kids. This diagram comes from the book Third Culture Kids Growing Up Among Worlds. It's Ruth Ann Reckon's CCK model, and it gives us a lot of different kinds of cross-cultural kids. This includes children who come from minority groups, whose parents immigrated or were refugees, who were adopted internationally, who moved within their own country or moved to another country and back again, who have parents from different cultures, different ethnicities, and educational cross-cultural kids who go to school in a different culture than their parents come from. It doesn't really matter which it is or how many of these experiences you have. Any of these experiences will give you that cross-cultural kid formation. And this is definitely true for all of these kids coming in from Hong Kong to the UK. Now, there are some differences and some similarities depending on the different kinds of cross-cultural kids we have. So some differences. Some CCKs will have different cultures within the home, like Chris described. Some will have different cultures between their school and their home, and some won't. Some are going to be impacted by transients, so moving from place to place or living in a community where lots of people are moving. And some will have the impact of visibility, where it's obvious that they look different to people around them. But regardless of which of those experiences they have, all cross-cultural kids grow up with multiple sets of invisible rules. That means that they've learned more than one way to live life. So the values that I'm taught are different in different places. So maybe at home I'm taught this way, and at school I'm taught this way. And in mum's country it's done this way, and in dad's country it's done this way. And when those rules contradict each other, when the way I need to act at school is different to the way I need to act at home, there can be some internal conflict. So cross-cultural kids develop strategies to manage those internal and external conflicts. How to be a good child when I'm managing different sets of expectations. Now, this has an impact on cross-cultural kids. One of those impacts is that they learn to adapt in every situation. And that's a really great skill to have. It's great to be able to adapt. But that can actually be tiring for children, that they have to adapt all the time. That takes energy, emotional, mental energy, because I have to be what each person wants me to be wherever I am. I'm acting, I'm thinking, I'm concentrating on who I need to be. But who am I in the middle of that? That's an important question for a cross-cultural kid. A big piece for a lot of these children, and this was going to be true for many of the children coming from Hong Kong into the UK, is that who I am at school is not all of who I am. But increasingly, as they adapt and engage in life in the UK and school in the UK, who I am at home will also not be all of who I am, because they'll have these two worlds that are both of those worlds who they are, but neither of them is completely themselves. So some things that can happen when you have this cross-cultural schooling experience. Parents sometimes have trouble helping their kids with homework or school expectations because the way that school is done is different. It's not necessarily about language, although that could be it, but that the expectations of teachers are different. The way that school is done is different. Not just the language, but the culture of school is different. So sometimes students end up translating those school expectations back to their parents, even if their parents speak the language. I've had students talk about how they even lie to their parents about what their school assignments are because my parents won't understand that they're asking me to do this thing. Explaining the rationale behind an assignment can be very important to help explain why we're doing this thing that is maybe we're not memorizing or we're not writing an essay. We're doing a creative expression for this reason, for this purpose, so that kids can help explain that, so that parents can help understand that when the education system is different to what they are used to. If I could have the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I thought I had another one. So this is, oh, no, I didn't. Oh, thank you very much. Parents can be surprised over time as kids spend more and more time in that school that their child's attitude may change. This will happen gradually over time as they spend time split between their two worlds, between their home world and their school world. And they absorb more and more elements of that school culture, the UK culture, in addition to their Hong Kong culture. For cross-cultural schooling to be successful, and for families who are cross-cultural schooling to find peace as a family unit, it's important that parents understand and accept that the child's experience is of two worlds that are both important to them, and to create space in the family for cultural difference. That means understanding that your home is going to be a cultural blend that will be both Hong Kong and UK together. That is a good thing, that is part of what happens when you make this move and you invite another culture into your home. Your child's childhood will be different to yours. And that can be difficult sometimes as a parent, to see your child live a life that is different to what maybe you had imagined it would be. But accepting that and creating space for that will change the tone of your home. And it can be a really wonderful journey that you go on together. I have only been able to share a tiny bit with you, but I would love to continue that conversation. You can add me on WeChat. You can follow me on my social media. You can find me at my website and at Unstacking Co., which is the company I'm working with, providing services to parents to help you work through different things that come with cross-cultural living. I'm going to invite Krish back now. Would love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Tanya. What a helpful presentation. I kind of wish my parents had watched that when I was younger. That would have been so helpful. We've had one question about whether the video is going to be available later, because people are really enjoying the content. And Enya, yes, the video is going to be available online at some future date. So watch out for that. I guess I'm a huge fan of Marvel shows, and I'm currently watching Miss Marvel, which is an example of a third culture child. Here's a teenager who's really wrestling with her Pakistani upbringing in America and feeling kind of out of sorts. And you were very gracious about thinking about some of those transitions. But what do you think are some of the kind of biggest friction points, and are there strategies that you've seen that will kind of help parents not to kind of react in a way that's going to alienate their children? I know that some of the ways that I behaved as a child made that very difficult for my mum and dad, and I guess that might be an unintended consequence of coming to the UK. Many Hong Kongers come to the UK because they really want their children to have a Western education, but those Western values might end up being in conflict with some of the values in the home. Have you seen, good strategies that might help parents deal with some of those frictions?
Yeah, that's a really common thing I see a lot. And I run workshops on this because often it's years after the decision's been made to enter a Western education that parents realize that these consequences have happened. And so it can be quite disheartening and difficult for the parent-child relationship. So there's two sides to the coin. One is that as a parent, you are responsible for the decision that's caused the friction in the relationship. And so owning that it is, you had the control, not the child. Your child didn't choose this path. But on the other side of it, you are allowed to grieve that your family may not look the way that you had expected it to. You as a parent are allowed to be sad that your child does not have the same cultural experience that you do because of this education, because of the move that you've made, because of the country that you're living in. It can still be a good move and a good decision, but you can also feel sad about it. It can be both at the same time. It can be a good decision and a difficult emotion to process at the same time. I think too often we don't allow ourselves permission to feel sad about the things we lose when we make a good decision, because often we can't have everything, right? Every choice that we make, we're choosing not to have something else. And in choosing to have your children in a Western education, you're choosing for them not to be in a Hong Kong education system. And there's things that go with that. And part of that is that they will not share all of the same cultural experiences and emotional connections to Hong Kong culture that you have. And so giving yourself space for that, I think, is the biggest part. Because if you aren't aware of your grief and don't process that, you'll put that onto your children, and you'll be angry at your children for not being, Chinese enough, Hong Kong enough, The other half, I would say, is to always assume the best of your child. That when your child does something that really hits against your values and seems rebellious to you, assume that your child is not trying to be awful, that either there's a miscommunication, that they are treating you the way that they have been taught at school to treat adults, or they're struggling with something. Go to them with an understanding mindset of, okay, let's find out what the problem is, what the miscommunication is. Because most of the time, most children are doing the best that they can in their situation. Same as most parents are doing the best that they can.
Yeah. Tanya, that's so helpful. A phrase that I've learned from my work with vulnerable children is to be curious, not furious. To try and figure out what's going on. I know my initial reaction when one of my kids isn't behaving in the way that I expected is to be angry and upset, but actually try to get beyond that emotion to what's going on here. What's the story that brings these behaviors out? Because they're really different to what I knew of my child before, and something has happened. And as parents, you made a really good point. We had the power to decide where in the world we lived, and our children just had to go along with that. And so we've got to take some of the responsibility here. And so maybe the balance of power needs to be, we need to be more lenient and forgiving and sympathetic with our children who didn't make that decision. That was a really helpful point for me. One last thing, I was wondering, my kids, my wife is English and Welsh. I'm Malaysian, Sri Lankan, and kind of English. I'm a real mix. I felt my kids weren't really valuing their heritage. And so for me, spending time in contexts where they were the majority, so being in a brown context seemed to matter a lot to me growing up. When I would go and visit my family in Malaysia, I felt different about the world because I wasn't the only brown child in my school. Suddenly, brown people were in the majority. That seemed to make a difference. Some Hong Kongers are going to be able to come and go to Hong Kong quite easily. Some might find it more difficult because of changing circumstances. What are things that parents can do to help kids value their heritage, feel like they're not a minority in the world?
It's a really good question. Look, there's so many resources out there to connect, but I think the piece that I would want to express is that you can't force it on a child, right? Our connection with place, our connection with language is emotional. So try to make sure that you create positive emotional connections for your child with the language, with the place, with the culture. If their only connection is something they see as a duty as a task, as a chore, that's going to be a negative association. So if it's like, okay, I have to go to Chinese school and learn Cantonese on the weekend, and I have to go to this boring place where, well, my parents' friends are, and I sit around talking to adults, those aren't going to be positive associations for them. But if their connection to their culture is, I do a cooking class with grandma on Zoom once a week, or I play chess with a bunch of kids, and that's a game that I enjoy, and we do it in Cantonese. Or if it's something that I have fun doing, if I get comic books in Cantonese that are sent to me, you know, find things that they're going to enjoy. Because if they keep that emotional connection, that they feel that love for that place, for that culture, for that language, that will continue over time. And when they're old enough to make the choice for themselves, they will want to associate, they will want to be connected. When you are no longer driving that connection, they will still stay connected.
That's such a helpful comment, Tanya, that if you're just forced to do things that relate to your parents' culture on your parents' terms, that may actually increase the resentment. But if it's fun and it's doing that, then suddenly it's a part of who they are. That's brilliant. We have a quick question, because I know we're slightly running over time, but this seems to be a useful question. Some Hong Kongers are coming to the UK precisely because they want to preserve part of their Hong Kong identity, certain cultural values, for example, that they see are not there in the new Hong Kong that might have been there in the old Hong Kong. Do you see any conflict between this and integrating into mainstream British society? Or rather, how can parents navigate this tension? That's interesting, isn't it? They like I've heard from some Hong Kong parents, the kind of freedom and openness of the British education system. So that's a cultural value they want, but they might not want all that British culture has in terms of, my family, it was individualism, children having a very different hierarchical relationship with parents. Any quick thoughts before we have to leave you and tell people to come and join a whole seminar with you?
Well, the first thing is that we aren't going to know for 5-10 years down the track what it's going to look like. And so parents have made a choice and they can only hope how it's going to turn out. And that's a scary thing for parents. But what you really want to focus on is, what is my value, my personal value? My personal value and our value as a family has caused us to make this choice to move, to leave this place and go to this place. Okay, so our values as a family has made this decision, and who we are as a family is not going to change. There are things that are going to change because of where we are. There are things that are going to change because we're engaging in this school system, when we're in this place and our kids are doing these things. But who we are is we're true to who we are because we've moved. That's part of that. And I think staying true to your own personal values and knowing that that's part of who you are. It's not about where you live. That can really help. That you don't have to be in a certain country to be who you are, to maintain certain values.
That's so helpful. And we're getting lots of lovely comments about what you've been saying, Tanya. So can I just say thank you? I know we've just scratched the surface of your wisdom and that book. Let's have a plug for that book, and people can be in touch with you, as you said. Well, there it is. Can you shout out the name just so we've got it?
Misunderstood.
Brilliant.
Misunderstood. The impact of growing up overseas in the 21st century. But yes,
excellent.
Please do follow me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it. Look for Tanya Crossman and you'll find me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thanks for staying up so late. I hope you sleep well, and see you again soon.
Thank you.
Now, we've heard from an expert in third culture children. We've heard from children themselves. What about parents? What are parents' experiences so far of moving to the UK from Hong Kong? And it's a delight that we have Grace Lai with us. Grace works as a mental health practitioner in the NHS. Thank you, Grace. We need your skills There's a kind of mental health emergency going on right now, so we're grateful that you're here. Why don't you share some of your experiences as a parent?
Yeah, definitely. Listening to Tanya was amazing. Just as she was talking about cross-cultural kids, and I'm just thinking about my children, and she's so right that we can't force our children to learn the language or the culture, but we can talk to them, we can embrace it and see how it goes. So I'm Grace. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I'm also a clinical social worker, experienced with working with children, addressing their mental health well-being, and I currently live in London. I grew up in Hong Kong, and I moved to the US for university, and have since then moved around with my children quite a bit, from New York to London. Can I have the next slide? And to Hong Kong, and then now back to London. As you can see my pictures. There's my son in the snow in New York, and then there's us in London, and then back to Hong Kong. And the last picture with the Hong Kong night sky, that was when we left in 2019. And that's when we came back to London. It was not a life that I have expected, to be moving around so much. As moving is never easy, and moving with children is even more difficult. So today I just wanted to share with you my experience moving with children and to encourage you as you're going through this process right now. I remember when we moved back to Hong Kong in 2015 here, that's my eldest, he was 6, and my middle child was not yet 2. There were so much emotions before the move, the sadness of leaving our friends, our community. Our son told us he didn't want to move because he loved his school and he had many friends. But at the same time, because we were going back to Hong Kong, I was very excited to be going back home to see the place where I grew up and to spend time with our families. Other than the excitement, there were anxiety and uncertainty about choosing the right school for my child. So when we went to Hong Kong, it was July 2015. We spent the first couple of months exploring the new city, trying out new food, meeting new and old friends. Then school started in September. Everything was fine at the beginning, but then one day, when we were on our way to school on the MTR, my son complained of a stomachache and refused to continue to go to school. As I know, sometimes children use physical symptoms to display the distressed and negative emotions. I remember sitting there on the MTR platform with my son and my young daughter. I was quite helpless and frustrated, and I was feeling guilty, and I questioned whether we made the right decision to move. Sociologists David Pollock and Ruth Van Breken explained that for people who move globally, learning to adapt to change is a crucial skill. They introduced the concept of building a raft to help ease the uncertainty we feel when we move to a new culture. Can we have the next slide, please? So RAFT stands for reconciliation, affirmation, farewell, and think destination. Reconciliation means achieving internal and external peace. We do this by recognizing and acknowledging the emotions brought about by changes. It is also the time to make relationships right. Asking for forgiveness in order to move on without having the burden of unresolved relationships. And acceptance is not the same as compelling yourself to undertake something, nor is it giving in or giving up. Acceptance is recognizing and understanding the emotions that rise up within us when we face changes. And as parents acknowledge their own emotions, they can help the children to recognize and share their feeling as well. Affirmation is recognizing and appreciating the people and things that are precious to us. Affirming what is precious allows us to have a positive perspective, even in challenging times. As we prepare for our departure, we can take the opportunity to show gratitude and appreciation to our family and friends who have had special impact on our lives. Farewell. Farewell means to say goodbye, saying goodbye properly, so we can avoid feeling regret. In order to enter well, we have to leave well. We do not only have to say goodbye to people or places, we can also say goodbyes to the hopes and the dreams or plans or opportunities that we have to give up when we move. Think destination is to turn our attention to what is to come. Family members may have different ideas about the new life in a new home. A family move is an opportunity for the whole family to come together as they face a new beginning. While we look forward to the new life, it's important to keep an open mind about what lies ahead. When we face setbacks, we can do our best to focus on the positives and try to identify small steps that we can take to keep moving forward. And sometimes what we most need is just to take the time to take care of ourselves, our health and our emotional health. Next slide. Then fast forward to our most recent move to London, 2019. This time with 3 children. Learning from our previous experience of moving, we spent more time showing our gratitude to our family and friends before we left. My children wrote cards, they sent pictures to their teachers and their friends. I spent my time saying my goodbyes and telling my family and friends how much they meant to us. It was more difficult for me to verbalize my feelings to my parents, but saying goodbye to them is very difficult, so I wrote a letter to them instead. Saying goodbye is not only limited to the people that we know, as I mentioned earlier. We also said goodbyes to our favorite playgrounds, our favorite swimming pools, restaurants, and the food. And I also said goodbye to my unfulfilled dreams about doing things in Hong Kong. We also look forward to coming to London. We look at the different cities and the towns that we'll be moving into and talk about where we would be visiting and when we arrive. So even though our journeys are not exactly the same, our reasons of leaving our home are not the same. The loss is real. A few tips I want to share. Next slide, please. To take care of yourself. As moms, we often spend most of our time taking care of our children, our husbands, our partners, and our home, and we forgot our needs and our feelings. It's important for us to acknowledge how we feel, the loss, the fear, the guilt, and all the worries. Spend time with your children, talk to them, and help them to express their feelings too. Make friends with other parents in school. Be a part of the school PTA, get involved in school events. Building a support network for yourself is very, very important. And also set up play dates for children. It will help them build friendships and build a sense of belonging. And also, don't hesitate to talk to the teacher if you have any concern, especially when you're new to the school, you're not so sure what is expected. Always approach them. It's really okay to grieve as a family of what we have lost. And there's no limit as when we need to stop having those feelings. The key is to be patient with yourself. It's very important to support our children during transitions of any kind. And helping them process their feelings and cope with negative emotions will help equip them with a lifelong tool to face challenges and changes in the future. That's one of the reasons my friend and I worked on a bilingual picture book together to address this issue. Can I have the next slide? The crowdfunding for our project has just started a few hours ago. So if you want to learn more about this project and to learn more about how we can support our children, take a look at the link. Next slide, please. Thanks. And feel free to email us with any questions as well. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here to share with you, and all the best on your new journey. Let's welcome Krish back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Grace. That was really powerful. And thank you for giving us that raft idea. I'm going to be using that in my own family as well, as we've just moved house recently. So it works in international travel, but it also works for local travel too.
Definitely.
So brilliant. Really, really well done. Thank you. Now and please get behind that fundraiser. It looks fabulous. It's a pleasure to invite another guest to join us now. Hannah Elwyn works for the Refugee Education UK. And we know that children moving to the UK from Hong Kong are not refugees, but there have been lots of children that have had to move countries at relatively short notice that we can learn from. And we want to kind of take the best of that experience and use it to make sure that children moving from Hong Kong have a flying start here in the United Kingdom. So, Hannah, it's always a pleasure to work with you. We're so grateful for the work that Refugee Education UK does. We know that you're working hard at the moment with people from Ukraine and Afghanistan and other nations too. So thanks for taking time out to help us today. Over to you.
Thanks, Krish. Yeah, it's a real privilege to be here. I've absolutely loved both presentations so far. I'm learning a lot too. Seems to be what we're all saying. As Krish said, I am Hannah and I am the head of Ethos and Culture at Refugee Education UK. But I've been here for 12 years and I've actually worked on all of our programs, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I've worked with lots of young people over the years, which I've absolutely loved. And yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about them and kind of some of the journeys that we've seen and some of the challenges that they face, in the hopes that it can encourage you that we see young people and children from all kinds of backgrounds do actually amazingly despite some of the real challenges they face. So yes, the first slide would be great, if possible. So Refugee Education UK, we are, is the first slide? No worries if it's not. Refugee Education UK, we exist to work with specifically asylum seeking. Oh, thank you. Actually, the next slide would be great already. To work with refugee and asylum seeking young people and children to help them build more hopeful futures, specifically through education. I'll explain why education in a minute. But just to say, we work with unaccompanied asylum seeking and refugee children, as well as increasingly actually with these larger resettlements that are going on from, as Krish said, Afghanistan and Ukraine, increasingly with families too, so with primary school age children, but yeah, also secondary school age children who've traveled to the UK alone without a responsible adult. And how we do that is we run educational mentoring for them, where we set up one-to-one relationships with a volunteer mentor who's local in their new community. Education progression to make sure they have access to advice and good guidance on how to progress here in the UK in this whole new system and culture. We do education welcome, so we run a couple of projects which help very new arrivals learn about the education system here and how to get into it and how to plan for the future. Education impact, which is looking beyond their education then. We run a leadership program for young refugees and asylum seekers. And we also do research into some of the big issues affecting young refugees and asylum seekers and how it impacts their education. And then we do bits of advocacy as well. Next slide, please. So these young people are mainly, sorry, this is kind of old data, 2020 though, from the Home Office. And the main countries that these young people are coming from, and this particular unaccompanied minors, is Afghanistan, Eritrea, Sudan, Iran, Syria, and Vietnam. So as you can see, some really challenging contexts that they're coming from. So by nature, refugees and asylum seekers have escaped persecution or conflict. That is why they're coming. So almost every single one of them that we've worked with have experienced pretty extreme trauma. And the journeys here can be very difficult. Sometimes, especially for those traveling without a responsible adult, where it might involve hiding quite a lot, or as we see on the news, coming across the channel on boats, and then they enter the asylum process. Everyone we work with has either been through it or is going through it, which is a very intense legal process. And then, of course, like all the children we're talking about today, adjusting to a whole new culture and system, So yeah, the young people we're working with are resilient and strong, to say the least. The next slide, please. One thing we see with the young people we're working with is just such an enthusiasm and voracious hunger for education. That's why our CEO, Catherine, set up RUK to focus on education, is because she was working with bigger NGOs, and she was just seeing, actually all across internationally, when working with children who were living through conflict situations or had escaped, that education just always a priority. No matter how acute the situation that they were in or coming out of, education was just such a priority that for them, and something that they really wanted. And I think this applies to any child moving to different contexts, different cultures. In some ways, it makes total sense, doesn't it? Education provides children and young people with routine and structure. It provides them with access to peers and new friends. And if they're younger children, contexts where they can play outside of the home. Also, having grown up moving every 4 or 5 years into new schools and different countries, I know from firsthand experience that language, when me and my sisters were going to school and immersed in new languages, we would become fluent to my parents' amazement within months, whereas they struggled to ever become as fluent as we did. So school is just amazing for being able to integrate in that really practical way of learning the language. And it is future orientated. It's somewhere where we're asking children and young people, what do you want to do and what do you want to be? And that's what we love doing with young refugees and asylum seekers. Instead of, they have enough asking, where have you come from? Where have you been? What happened to you? Whether it's in the asylum process, the legal asylum process, or in counseling, if they're able to get counseling. School's one place where we can say, hey, what do you want to do? Who do you want to become? And we just love that about education and working within that kind of space with these young people and children. Next slide, please. I don't have time to actually go through all of these because I love talking about education so much that I've taken up so much of my 10 minutes. But just to say that, I mean, in some ways it's really obvious. As I said, these young people just face incredible barriers and challenges as they progress. But I can honestly say that this education is a space where we just see them able to, once we help them overcome those barriers, and these are often things to do with legal barriers, getting housing, that kind of thing, which are maybe more specific to asylum seekers and refugees. Once they're able to be in education, despite all these barriers and setbacks, we have seen hundreds of young people and children adjust, integrate, and progress in the most incredible ways. I know young people who are now at university doing masters, working with us here at RUK, who have really overcome so much. So just to encourage you that is absolutely possible, even for young people who are here without their parents. So we have so much hope for your children and your young people as well. Next slide, please. And just to point out, like, what are the practical things that we see make a big difference? I mean, apart from just being in school or college, I would also say that the young people, I guess by nature, if they're working with us, they're making use of the support available to them. So really make use of that support. Things like extra academic support, peer support, language, pastoral care, anything that's available, whether it's within your school or maybe organizations that are local to you, or maybe your community, your new community here in the UK, really make use of those things. And I think just working with our schools to help them understand how to welcome and include our young people. If we notice things that are not working for them or making them feel at a disadvantage, just really voicing those things and making sure that it is a welcoming and inclusive place for our children, for your children and young people. Next slide, please. just very aware of time, so I'm racing through my slides, but I just wanted to kind of raise that if you have any questions about the resources we have, they are specific to refugees and asylum seekers, but we'd be really happy to answer any questions at all. There are our details. I'm sure they'll be available in other forums, but I'm going to finish so that we have time to hear from the rest of the amazing presenters. And thank you again so much for having me and listening to me for these 10 minutes. Thank you.
I find school really fun because you can learn a lot of things about history.
School isn't the worst, like Hong Kong, as it has like tens of thousands of homework. You feel very under stress and pressure. You can't even enjoy yourself. Yeah, I really love school, and I don't have anything that isn't good about it. The only thing is the drastic changes in weather, which sometimes cancels our events or sports.
Yeah, the teachers are helpful. They help me to do English and just English writing. They help me a lot.
And the teachers here, they are very friendly. Like my teacher, she is very friendly, which is one of her best personality traits. She is very helpful. She talks to students and she tries to help them in the best way she can. When she always picks some handful of kids are very confused, she will help them personally.
The teacher in UK is nice. The math question is pretty easy.
Brilliant. Those kids are fantastic. And they're so right about the weather. I apologize on behalf of the whole United Kingdom. Our weather here is disastrous. Sometimes we can say we can have 4 seasons in one day. So apologies that you've had to cancel so many of your sporting matches. I'm glad to hear teachers are very friendly. That's good to hear too. Well done, teachers. Fantastic to hear from Hannah. I guess my takeaway is encouraging and challenging. So the encouraging is that if children who have had really traumatic starts in life, they've had to leave war zones like Ukraine or Afghanistan or Yemen, they can flourish here. We should have every confidence that children that are coming from Hong Kong who haven't experienced that will flourish here too. I guess the challenge is that you might have come across in your own experience how difficult it is to help your children settle in a new country. Just multiply that by 1,000 times if you've come from a country where you've had to flee war and terror and famine. And maybe you would like to get alongside a charity like Refugee Education UK. They're doing fabulous work with some very vulnerable children. And Hannah was too gracious to ask for it, but you might want to volunteer or support what they're doing because they're doing fantastic work. Great. Now, it's important that we keep hearing from different perspectives, and we're delighted to be able to introduce you to Lillian. Lillian is from HK Well, and she's bringing another parental experience into our conversation today. Thank you so much, Lillian. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Lillian from Hong Kong Well, UK. I was a secondary school teacher, Sanko, and registered social worker in Hong Kong, and have moved here for 10 months. Yes. So I'm also the newcomer. Yeah. Yeah. And then Hong Kong Well UK is a community interest company. At this moment, we have not received any public fundings as we are a new startup. Yeah, we have around 140 volunteers, including Hong Kong-born clinical psychologists, therapists, social workers, and teachers who offer parents and children a way to navigate the British system and help find information about service available in the community. We are serving the mental well-being of children and teenagers. Yeah. newly migrate to the UK from Hong Kong, as well as their parents in their mother tongue. It's our pleasure to share today what difficulties Hong Kong has met in the UK and how we can help you and your children. Next slide, please. Yeah, this one. Yeah, the previous one. Yes, please. Yeah. And adjusting to our new lives has not always been easy. Just like Grace have talked before, there is no doubt that Hong Kong children are enjoying less homework and can sleep much earlier compared with in Hong Kong. It seems that there's less pressures in the UK, but it is not for all the kids. The true picture is that some children have a history of mental health issues, others develop anxiety or depressions after moving. We have done some questionnaires in order to have more understanding of the adjustment problems of Hong Kong children. Around 80% of parents said the children have difficulties when we ask how well their child is adapting to school. The main 4 difficulties are as follows. The first one is adapting to different teaching methods. 2 is not knowing his or her own performance in different subjects. Third one is in communications with teachers and classmates. And then last is learning in English. As a Hong Kong government survey found only 1 in 4 school children are fluent in English to the classroom level. So the kids may feel stressed about that. Next piece. Yes, 66% of parents are concerned about the emotional health of their children, and around 30% said the children has emotional problems. In our around 100 inquiries since February this year, more than half has been asking for counseling service. Parents were worried about seeing the children miss Hong Kong and also their friends and relatives. Some could not understand why the family had unroot them. Parents felt heartbroken because they came to the UK because of the kids. They want them to have a more healthy life, but now they need to cope with the emotional fluctuations of their kids. They feel difficult to share with others, as it seems to be a taboo that to say we are not happy in the UK. Yeah, in fact, SEN education in the UK is much more developed compared to that in Hong Kong. But as a newcomer, Hong Kong parents found difficulties knowing what SEN support is provided to cater for the development of their SEN children and how to ask for SEN support from school and councils. They are also eager to know how to find a suitable school for their kids, no matter whether a mainstream or special school. Another difficulty is that when they want to have some mental health services, it's really difficult to get a referral to child and adolescents mental health services. Next please. Therefore, one of the main reasons behind the adjustment problem is our parents had inadequate information and little understanding of local offers. Around 60% of our 100 inquiries are asking for information on local offers and resources. For most of the Hong Kongers, we may not feel comfortable express our emotion even in using our mother language. When the Hong Kongers talk about problems, they tend to understate them. But the children here express them directly. So GP may not easily detect the problems of the Hong Kong children. Thus the language barrier and also the cultural barrier also hinder kids and parents from expressing their needs and emotion. It's easy to mistake it as an adjustment issue rather than an emotional issue. So parents have sought help from NHS, but some have expressed helplessness in mental health support. Yes, next piece. We worry about the above service gap, which makes it more difficult for parents and children to integrate here. And the most important point is that children can't wait for a while. We aim to smooth out their adjustment issue with the support of counseling advice and services that they can relate to and understand. To offer help, we use a holistic child and family-centered approach to Hong Kong children, young people, and their whole families, including preventions, interventions, and empowerment. We are the contact point helplines for parents who have concerns about the children's or young people's mental well-being. We listen to their inquiry or concerns and signpost to receive the appropriate resources from a team of experienced advisors with a social work background in Hong Kong. It's a very Hong Kong model, actually, and we really hope to help parents directly. Our Advisors give advice to parents through signposting different local resources to cater to the individual needs of the kids. We also recommend some activity for our family, such as finding some vintage bus sporting events for one of our cases who has an autism son. It can encourage his sons to face adjustment difficulties here, as he can find more exciting moments to develop his interest in watching, photographing, and checking bus here. For supporting the kids, we offer cheer assessment and Cantonese counseling service by the UK registered clinical psychologist or counselor, while the child or young person is waiting for supporting from child and adolescent mental health service. Hong Kong World UK hopes that this service will fill the gap while they are waiting for more support from NHS services, the GP, teachers, or special needs service from school. On the one hand, we believe it may lessen the pressures from the local service. On the other hand, children and teenagers, including their parents, will receive the help what they need, then enhancing the quality of their new life in the UK. Next slide, please. Yes, we also try to bridge the information gap. We do translation for family in Cantonese or English to support their communications with various stakeholders. For example, our bilingual website provides information on mental health service offered by NHS and other NGOs, as well as send support for NHS, such as how to prepare for your first mental health sessions with a GP, how to get mental health support from NHS. For NHS, for NGOs, we talk about what kinds of mental health community support a child can get. For SEN support, we have some articles such as what is the SEN support provided by school, how to get SEN support from school, what kinds of learning adjustment can you ask for, and how does the UK system process applications for SEN support. We make some Chinese publications for children and parents' guides on adjustment issues, such as how to help your child when they refuse to go to school, and how to manage the anger of your kids. We have some workshop on stress and anxiety relief. We hold a talk once a month about different topics on mental health issues and local support. Equipping parents is beneficial to ease some tensions within the family caused by mental stress. Online talks or peer sharing groups are ways to empower parents to handle some issues at the forefront. To bridge the gap between school and Hong Kongers, we make various English pamphlets to inform teachers about Hong Kong students and about the recent political and social development of Hong Kong, how this has affected children and how they can help the students to settle in UK school. Next piece. Yeah. Here is one example of our teachers' information pamphlets. For teachers and parents, you can visit our website and follow our Facebook so that you can find our articles, videos, and promotion for coming activity. Finally, our team would like to share our most important message to all. That is, if your kids have some adjustment difficulties, it's not unusual. It's okay not to be okay. With your unconditional love and support, your kids can go through these troubled waters. This is the end of our sharing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lillian. That's helpful. And thank you for doing two things, for building a bridge, because in the UK, we're on a journey on making it easier to speak about our mental health as adults and children's mental health. And we know that, as you said, in Hong Kong, that's a more difficult conversation right now. But thank you for building that bridge. And we'll all remember your little phrase, it's okay not to be okay. And we don't have to feel shame or embarrassment about that.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. It's really powerful. And please, friends, be in touch with HK Well. As they say, they haven't received government funding yet.
Yes, I hope so.
We'll be praying that they do, and maybe we can support their application. But please make use of this incredible network of counsellors and mental health experts so that your children can get the support they need. One of the things that we found is that moving house and moving continents and cultures can be a little bit like a pressure cooker, and things that might have been there before but were invisible come to the surface. And so you might find that your children are facing things that you didn't know were a problem for them back in Hong Kong, but they were there, they were just hidden. So again, please make use of Lillian's fantastic work.
And thanks for the invitation for us to share. Yeah, thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. Our pleasure. Great. So we've heard from cross-cultural experts, we've heard from children, we've heard from parents, and now let's build that bridge another level. Let's talk to Ali Rice. Ali is bringing a teacher's perspective. Ali's been a head teacher and has worked not just here in the UK, but as I understand it, Ali, in Hong Kong as well. Is that right?
No, that's not right.
Oh,
Sorry.
I got your bio wrong. I'm sorry. Anyway, give us your perspective, Ali, on how Hong Kong parents can understand how the system might be a bit different here than what they're used to back in Hong Kong. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Krish, for inviting me this afternoon. And like you just said, I'm just going to hopefully give you a short overview of the primary education system in England. I'm going to talk specifically about England because in the UK, the four nations do have slightly different education systems. So we're going to concentrate on England today. And we're going to look at how we can, how schools support, monitor and evaluate pupil achievement. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how primary schools support children so that they're able to thrive. Thriving children is so important in the English education system, and that's what we're all about, and that's why we're here. So first of all, I thought it might be helpful to explain a little bit of the different types of school systems that we have here in England. State schools are government funded and they provide free education for pupils. There's different types of state schools. And we have community schools. These are local authority maintained. That means that their funding comes through the local authority and they follow the national curriculum. They aren't influenced by any businesses or by religious groups. Academies and free schools receive their funding directly from the government, and they have more freedom to change how they do things, and they can also choose to follow a different curriculum. Faith schools can be local authority schools, or they can be part of a multi-academy trust, and they have a little more freedom over what they teach in religious education. Faith schools also might have they do have kind of an ability to change their admissions criteria, and it might be a little different to other types of schools. It's worth noting that in all state schools in England, your children will receive religious education. So it's in faith schools, but it's also in all state schools. Likewise, in all state schools, pupils take part in a daily act of collective worship. This will look different in the different types of school, but it will usually be of a broadly Christian character that aims to promote spiritual, moral, and cultural development. When you're considering which school to send your child to, the government provide a website which is up on the screen, and you can use this as a tool to search for schools in geographical areas. This will give you information about the school's performance, which includes data on pupil achievement. It'll include a link to the school's latest Ofsted report and links to the school's website. Ofsted inspect all state schools in England, and they publish reports of their findings. So you'll be able to find the report on the school that you're hoping to send your child to on this website here. In order to access a place at school, you'll need to contact the local authority in which you settle. They will then be able to advise you on the correct protocol to follow. Admissions criteria for schools can be found on individual school websites. You will usually have some choice over which schools you want to select for your child to go to. However, that might be more limited if you're applying for a place after the start of reception year. So pupils start school here in England in reception in September, and that is at the start of the academic year in which they turn 5. Most children will already have been attending nursery since the age of 3. Within the first few weeks of starting reception, pupils take part in baseline assessment. This is a series of short activities which give us the school a snapshot of pupils' English and math skills. This provides a starting point to measure the progress that schools make with pupils between reception and when they leave primary school. In the early years of education, language-rich learning is based around a variety of play activities and experiences. Children are assessed on a range of early learning goals, and at the end of reception, pupils who meet the expected standard in certain areas are said to have a good level of development. This means that they're ready for the next stage of their learning journey. For pupils who don't reach a good level of development, support is put in place so that they can access and accelerate their learning in Year 1 alongside their peers. Pupils who've developed beyond the early years expectations are identified as well, and this information is passed on to their next class teacher so that they're able to provide work which will stretch and challenge them. From Year 1 onwards, local authority schools in England follow the national curriculum, and many academies choose to do so, but they're free to decide on their own curriculum. However, whichever curriculum schools are following, it's a requirement that details about their curriculum are on the school website. This is a great source of information and helps parents to have a clear understanding of the knowledge and skills pupils will be taught in each year group. Pupils are assessed in each subject in a variety of ways. This includes informal tests and quizzes, discussions and questions, as well as formal exams. In primary school, National Standard Assessment Tests, or SATs, take place in Year 2. That's when children are about 7, and also in Year 6 when children are about 11. These test pupils' progress and attainment in reading, English grammar, punctuation and spelling. Sorry, that's a bit of a mouthful. And in maths. Pupils' writing skills are also assessed. Pupils also take part in phonics screening at the end of Year 1. So this is when they're about 6 years old. And this assesses their early understanding of phonics. That's letters and the sounds that they make. Similarly, in Year 4, 9-year-old pupils undertake a multiplication check. And that's just to make sure that their pupils are ready for the next step of their learning journey. The results of these different types of assessment are shared with parents through an annual written report. Parents are also usually invited into school twice per year to meet with their child's class teacher. This meeting helps parents understand the progress your child is making and informs you of areas where they may need to develop, where they may need support, or where they may need additional challenge. Primary schools in England are really keen to get to know children and their parents, and they often have an open door policy, which means that you're always welcome to go and speak to a member of staff if you're puzzled about something, if you're worried about anything, or if you need help. Schools would much rather know than for you to keep it to yourself. To ensure pupils are able to flourish and achieve their potential, schools offer many different types of support. This includes support for pupils who might have a special educational need, pupils who might need some pastoral or emotional support, and pupils for whom English is an additional language. Each school has access to a special educational needs and disability coordinator, or SENCO, who will ensure the needs of pupils are being met. If you feel your child has additional needs and needs additional support, you'll be able to meet with the school's SENCO to discuss the support that is in place and also to give your view on what you consider your child might need in order to thrive. So your views will be taken into account and you'll be able to look at how best to support your child at home and the support that can be made available in school. Many schools in England also offer pastoral support and interventions for pupils who need help with their social, emotional and mental health needs. So if you feel that your child needs help in this area, contact your child's class teacher or the school's pastoral team if they have one, and they will listen and they will offer support as necessary. Pupils also study PHSE in school, which also offers an opportunity to develop emotional and mental health and well-being. For pupils who speak English as an additional language, schools are often supported by local authority ethnic minority achievement services. That's another mouthful, sorry. This team helped to equip the school to provide your child with the tools that they need to access learning in a new language environment. This can include supporting your child one-to-one or in a small group to help build up their vocabulary. And it may also include providing computer programs and language programs or other resources which will help your child to learn in a new language. Teachers also use a range of strategies to support learners who are new to English. They may provide visual support to help your child's understanding, and there'll be often opportunities for your child to work alongside a pupil who is articulate and has a good breadth of English vocabulary so they can model language structures. For parents who are learning English as an additional language, many schools also aim to translate messages and letters home into your preferred language so that you can easily access all information which is sent home. I know a lot of parents are keen to know about homework, and the children that we've seen in the videos have mentioned it already. But each school in England has its own homework policy and philosophy. So it does vary from school to school. Typical homework activities might include reading, spelling, learning times tables, and practicing skills linked to classroom learning. Sometimes schools set creative projects for pupils to complete over a longer period. Please don't worry if your child doesn't have lots and lots of homework. Expectations over the amount of homework do vary, and they also increase as the child's age increases. Out of school, there's also a lot of extracurricular activities for your child to enjoy. Again, there will be variation depending on the school setting and what they can offer, but clubs which typically might be on offer would include sports clubs, craft, science, eco clubs or gardening clubs, and choir or music. Most clubs are free, but some are offered by external providers, and those will come at a cost to parents, but schools always make that very clear if there's a cost attached to a club that you're signing up to. So, small group music tuition is also available in many primary schools and might be a cheaper alternative than paying for private tuition outside of school. Each school's offer is unique, but all schools will offer some sort of extracurricular experiences for children to enjoy. Many schools also offer wraparound care like breakfast club and after school club. This is for parents who need help with childcare, and this will come at a cost to parents. As you move to live in a new area, one great way to get to know the community is to get involved with the school's parent-teacher association. This is usually a group of parents, teachers, and friends of the school who organise events, and they get the school community together, and they also look at raising funds for the school. Attending these events or getting on the team and helping to organise them is a really good way of getting to know other parents and getting involved in school life. That was a whistle-stop tour, but I hope that's just given you a really short, quick flavour of what to expect from the English education system. And I know that you will receive a really warm welcome into your new school community when you arrive. I'm just going to welcome Krish back now so that he can join us again. Hi, Krish.
Fantastic, Ali. Thank you so much. Really helpful, very comprehensive. And I hope you can hear, friends, that there's so much support there for you. Whatever you're facing, there are resources available to you. And I know you might want to watch back again when the video is made available, because Ali had so much helpful information. So thank you, Ali. I really appreciate your time. We've been thinking a little bit, thanks to some of our guests, about the trauma and the mental health impact of transitioning to a new culture. And it's fantastic we were able to catch up with David Trickey, who's an expert, a global expert in trauma. And he can help us spot the first signs of trauma in children and young people. So we're going to hand over to David for that now. Thank you.
Sure. So my name is David Trickey. I'm a consultant clinical psychologist and co-director of the UK Trauma Council. And I've been specialising in working with traumatised children and families for the last 20 years. So lots of people talk about trauma, they use the word a lot. And if we think in this context, what do we mean by that? We mean an experience or a series of experiences that are very threatening or very horrific or very frightening. And they may overwhelm people and their ability to cope. And the difficulties and distress that follow actually endure and last for longer. It's not a transitory thing, it's not something that reduces over time, actually they remain with those difficulties. So it's really important that people look out for each other and for their mental health and their well-being, because although social support and connection is not an antidote to trauma, it is a really important element that creates that environment that will help people to get through the difficult situations they've been faced with. So one of the first things you need to do in order to realise if you have experienced trauma and if you're going through trauma is to start to notice. Start to notice what's going on in you and those around you, both in terms of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're doing. And then things to look out for are changes in moods. So that might mean that you start to notice you're feeling very low and depressed and down and unmotivated. And that's not just a passing phase, but actually a feeling that extends sort of all day, every day for a period of weeks and months. Or people might start to feel more worried and more anxious. And again, given what people have been through, it's completely understandable they may be more anxious and worried. But if that starts to become a problem, if it starts to stop people doing things they want to do or they ought to do, then that's obviously something to look out for. And also people might start to notice that they are being more irritable. So because they're on this higher level of arousal physiologically, it takes less for them to lose their temper or less for them to become incredibly frustrated. And then the other thing to notice is what's happening with people's memories. Are memories things that they have control over, that they can bring to mind when they want to reflect on their past? Or do the memories have a bit of a life of their own and force themselves into people's consciousness, perhaps forcing themselves into people's dreams? So they feel like the memories are out of control. That would be another sign to look out for. So the thing about traumatic memories is they are different to normal event memories. They intrude, they're stored as the actual sight, smells, tastes and touches rather than the story of the event. And at some point, the way to stop those memories from intruding and having a life of their own is to tell the story and to think through what happened. We call it processing the events. But when people arrive in the UK, they may still feel in survival mode. They may not feel safe enough yet to think about what's happened in their past. But at some point, with somebody, it's likely to be really useful for them to sit down and actually go through what happened. That might be really distressing, but that will actually change the format of the memory so that it becomes better behaved and stays put more easily. So research tells us there are 5 things that really help to create the environment around people after they've experienced trauma or really stressful, frightening experiences that will help them to recover and to get through those events. The first is finding out what helps them to feel safe. Now often, because of people's experiences, they may feel that they're no longer safe. It may change their view of themselves, the world and other people, such that they don't feel safe. So the first thing is to find out what's going to make you feel safe. The second principle to help people recover and get through their traumatic experiences is finding what helps them to calm down. Now many of us, when we have a stressful event, we have an adrenaline shot. So we have a stress response system that helps us to cope with whatever the stressor is. And then when that stressor has passed, actually we normally go back to our resting level. But for people who've experienced traumatic events rather than stressful ones, actually it's very difficult for them to go back to that state of calm and rest. What happens is they stay on a high level of arousal, a high level of alert, because their brain is set up now to survive and it's looking for the next bad thing that's going to happen. But actually once people are safe, we need to remind their brains that they're safe and remind their bodies that they're safe, and find ways to reset that arousal level so they can go back to feeling peaceful and safe and calm. The next thing is what helps you to feel connected and supported. So being connected to other people or being supported by fellow human beings is really important for helping you through the traumatic events. So again, find the best way for you to feel connected. That might be, again, playing football. It might be going for lunch with someone. It might be finding groups of people, either new people or old people that you've known for a while, that you can really spend time with and connect and feel supported by. So that doesn't magically heal all the wounds, but it means you don't have to go through things on your own. And then the next thing is, how do you help to feel in control of what's happened? Now, very often people who've experienced trauma, they don't feel in control. They may not have been in control of what happened to them. So you need to find the things that you can control. You might not be able to control a government's policy on immigration, but you can control whether you fill in certain forms, whether you take certain decisions. And that extends to children as well. How can you help children to feel they have some choices in things that are happening around them? And the last principle that we put into place to provide that environment where people are most likely to recover from traumatic events is trying to help them to feel hopeful about the future. That's not about pretending things didn't happen to them, but it's about sometimes looking forwards and thinking, what can we look forward to? How are we going to get through this together? What is there that's positive that's going to be happening in the future? And they may only be little things, but we're looking for those little lights that we can look to for the future. Following traumatic experiences, many people will have a high level of distress and difficulties. That's completely natural and understandable. But many of those people, over time, that level of difficulty and the distress will decrease, perhaps over the weeks and months that follow. But the time to seek help is if you don't think that things are getting better, if generally speaking things don't seem to be improving for you, and you have a significant level of distress and difficulties that are really stopping you getting on with things.
Hey, thank you so much, David Trickey. I was taking notes. That man is a global expert in trauma. The key takeaway I had from that was around agency. When you give children the chance to make decisions, you help them take back control of their lives, and that's a really powerful way of overcoming trauma. So I think that's a really powerful thing. I've seen that take place when we're looking after vulnerable children that have escaped a war zone or abuse or neglect. Giving decision making back to children seemed to make the big difference for us. So thank you, David. I know you're going to want to rewatch that, friends, again. Now we've had a global expert in trauma, and now I'm delighted to introduce you to Emma Wong. Emma is a clinical psychologist, and she brings this kind of, again, bridge building expertise of helping us understand children, Hong Kong, and the current situation in the UK. Emma, we are looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for joining us. Over to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Krish. It's my honor to join here and to share with you something about dealing with loss and bereavement. Slide, please. Yeah. Next, please. As a clinical psychologist and as a mother of a 10-year-old, and also someone also come to the UK recently from Hong Kong, I noticed that children here just migrate to UK. Some of them, they have very strong attachment, still with the very strong attachment to Hong Kong. They miss the food and they miss the people in Hong Kong. But some of them, they have another reaction that they may just think that, oh, it's none of my business. I'm really good being in the UK, and I don't care about the people, and yeah, something happened in Hong Kong. So there are quite different reactions with this migration. Next, please. In fact, with this change in living place and the migration and this change in the one's social structure, there is a loss of something. So what has been lost for this kind of children or this family? In fact, some of the children, they just come with maybe their mother or their parents, but they're still their grandparents and their family, other family members or friends, they're still in Hong Kong. So there's a loss of the family unit. So it is incomplete. And the cultural norm is different too. Some of them may have different food. They are going to miss their favorite food. I know some of the children, they miss the fish ball. They miss the siu mai in Hong Kong and the snacks. And the languages would be different. They seldom talk in Cantonese. Nowadays with other people, they need to talk in English, and the attitude or the social structure of the community is different. And also the religious custom may be different from shifting from those in Hong Kong to those in UK. And the social support system network is also a lot. There is also a loss of the support system. The friends, the close one, may be different too. Next, please. So it's not surprising with these kind of losses. There's a grief reaction. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross proposed 5 stages of grief. I'm not going into details today, but I just want to quickly go through these different stages of grief, including denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So you can see all these different emotional reactions. In fact, it is quite normal. Next, please. It may be quite normal for people or for children experiencing these grief reactions. And these stages are not linear, and there's no prescribed order for someone who need to go through all these 5 stages and then, okay, I'm accepted. I'm okay now. No, there is a continuum of experience and changing all the time. As I said before, the grief can be natural and healthy. So it is, as we mentioned, some of the speaker mentioned before, it can be okay not to be okay. So when you notice some emotional reaction, just like depression or anger, this can be healthy. But if you notice the emotional reaction is affecting the daily functioning and the impairment is so severe, then that may be signs that you need to watch out and seek help. So what's the concept of acculturation and assimilation? These two are the common concepts that we sometimes propose when the minority group migrate to the majority group. Acculturation means there's a frequent contact between the diverse, culturally diverse group, that the minority group may get used to the majority group, but there's still retainment of the original culture, a respect, and there's a frequent connection between different groups of culture. But assimilation is just disappear of one's culture, and then may the minority group just emerge to the majority group. And this is a process, and that involves a cultural identity. People who have problem in reacting to the losses and have problem with this adjustment may have a sense of alienation and isolation. But people who, but I think it is good thing that to develop one's sense of belonging so that we can help people dealing with the losses and overcoming the dysfunctional grief reactions. Next, please. So I just keep it short and simple. As a parent or as a teacher, what you can do to facilitate the grief process for these kind of children when they are just coming to UK as a new immigrant. I think the first thing is the attitude. Be open, curious, and non-judgmental. You may have some different views on some children's reaction. I've come across an example is quite interesting that, people from the Hong Kong just migrate to UK. They, especially under the pandemic, they may still feel more secure wearing a mask to school. So some of the people, some of the parents, they share with me that, oh, the school teacher didn't want them to wear a mask, but they feel more secure. I think we can be more open to different kinds of values and culture and different circumstances. So being openly, curiously, and with a non-judgmental attitude is the utmost important attitude. And it's also necessary to acknowledge or, of course, appreciate children's family of origin, including the cultural values, religious practices. So they may come with different cultural practices, even they all come from Hong Kong. So I think as a teacher or as a parent, please acknowledge all these different differences. Next, please. Allow space for children to express their feelings and needs. Sometimes listening, active listening is just good enough and not necessarily any active intervention for the children. I think the most important thing, especially for children, is to allow a space for them to talk and to talk to you as a person they trust. So just listen. Sometimes it's just good enough. Next, please. So as a teacher or parents, please prepare to offer support and help. Of course, if you need any support, please raise. And I think this is also important to build up a supporting network and facilitate adjustment to the new community. I think these are just tips and reminders for us to help the children, not only to help them better adjust the new environment, but also to deal with the losses and to deal with especially dysfunctional grief reaction. But I think it's also reassuring that it's okay that they have some emotional reaction, not to be too overly react to this reaction. So this is the end of my presentation. I would like to invite Chris to come back again.
Thank you so much, Emma. Really helpful. And the fact that you've got experience as a mum and a clinical psychologist, and you're bringing that Hong Kong wisdom is so useful to our listeners. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And again, really helpful to think about things from a child's perspective and that sense of loss and bereavement. And they might not have words for that, but as parents, thanks to you, we'll be able to see that where it's occurring. So thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Friends, we are coming towards our close, but we're not going to leave you without another really powerful mechanism for you to get access to the help that you need. And over many different projects, it's been a delight to work with Barnardo's. Barnardo's is one of the biggest children's charities in the United Kingdom. And they've been working hard with Afghan refugees, with Ukrainian refugees, and they also stepped up some support to help new arrivals from Hong Kong. So I'm delighted that Andrew is able to join us today. Andrew, thanks for being part of our event. Tell us about what Barnardo's can do to help Hong Kong children.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for the welcome and the introduction. And hello from Barnardo's to all of you watching. So Bernardo set up the BOLO helpline, and we set this up in October 2020. The research coming out at that stage was showing that Black, Asian, and minority families were disproportionately impacted because of the COVID pandemic. If we can move to the first slide, and I can talk through. Thank you. So we initially received funding to set up this helpline. And if you don't know, BOLO means speak. And our vision is to encourage families and young people to speak out and seek support whenever they need that. When we set the helpline up, we realized that we wanted a helpline that was very different to other helplines out there. And we looked at the barriers and the challenges for people accessing helpline support. So we set up the service. And as Chris mentioned, we've been working with asylum seekers and refugees, and it's great that we got some funding as well to be able to offer that support to Hong Kong British nationals coming to the UK. And we're a national helpline, and we have advisors and staff that are based right across the UK. And we, as I said, we wanted the helpline to be very different to other helplines out there. So we have staff that are culturally informed and knowledgeable about the lived experiences of families that contact us as well. Our staff speak a range of different languages, and Lillian mentioned before about some of those barriers and the language difficulties that people have when they're trying to access helpline support. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So there's 3 ways that you can contact our helpline, and we have a free phone telephone number, and we also have web chat, and you can contact us via email, and that can also be through our website. You can send us a message through there. We're open 6 days a week, so Monday to Friday, and then Saturday from 10 until 3 o'clock. And the calls are confidential, so you can trust that what you share with us will remain confidential. We offer a 3-tier approach, which we see is different to some other helplines. Our Tier 1 support allows you to call our helpline and speak with one of our advisors, and we have advisors who speak Cantonese, and they can offer you that one-off emotional support, advice, and signposting, helping you to navigate life in the UK. Our Tier 2 support is in addition to that, where you'll be allocated an advisor who will work with you over a number of different calls. We know that's a tried and tested way, and that really works, where you have one advisor that will continue to work with you. You build the trust with them, and they'll support you over a number of calls. And we can also support you with the practical needs as well. And we know for families that often those practical needs can add to stresses within the family. So I'll talk a bit more about that in the next slide as well. And our Tier 3 approach is in addition to everything else, but we also offer 6 sessions of therapy or counselling, and that is to children, parents, and any adult that would like to avail of that. Next slide, please. So the therapeutic support or counselling that we offer 6 sessions of this, and it's a digital offer, so it'll be through via telephone or via an online platform like Zoom or any other video platform that you have. The therapists that we have, they speak Cantonese, and they have a lived experience as well, so they really understand the issues that families want to talk about, and the issues that young people may be experiencing. Lillian also mentioned earlier about the real pressures on the mental health services within the UK, and the long waiting lists for young people to access that really needed counselling support. So it's great that we're able to allocate a therapist within 2 weeks. And it's a stopgap service that allows young people or parents to access that support, maybe whilst they're waiting for CAM support or other professional supports. The Tier 2 practical support that we offer, Bernardo's, as Chris mentioned, is the largest children's charity in the UK, and so we have partnerships with lots of organisations and companies. So we're able to support families with access to digital devices, baby items, toys, and vouchers as well. So if that's something that you as a family or as a teacher or professional, you think a family would benefit from support with, please do encourage to contact the helpline. Next slide, please. So professionals can contact us directly, and you can refer families to us. Teachers can do this as well as people contacting them themselves. And a dedicated advisor will be allocated, and they will then make contact with the family. And our helpline advisors work in tandem with the counsellors as well. So the advisor will support the family with those the advice, the signposting, and that practical support. And then the therapist will work with the young person or the parent to address the mental or emotional health needs as well. Next slide, please. We do have resources on our website that are translated and that explain everything that our helpline offers as well. And if you're a teacher or professional You can download those flyers, and please do make use of them and share those as widely as you can. And the next slide, please. We very much see the BOLO helpline as a community. We see it as more than just a traditional helpline, and through that we offer a weekly conversation club, which allows adults, parents to come along to talk about life in the UK, to learn about life in the UK, as well as in a very informal and relaxed way, being able to practice English, which is in a very different way to ESOL classes, for example. So if this is something that you're interested in and you would you'd like to get involved, we would really encourage you to be involved in this, to our weekly conversation clubs. You can find out more about that on our website as well, and that explains how you can sign up. So I'll end with just leaving on the screen the different ways that you can contact the helpline, and I'll invite Chris to come back in.
Thank you very much. A few questions there, Adam. Some people, sorry, Andrew. Some people were asking: is the BOLA in person, or is it on the phone or online? And they were just trying to clarify what BOLA means, and is it different from Bernardo's? I think that might be a language thing,
Sure.
but
Sure.
could you help with that?
Yeah. So BOLO means speak, translated into English. And the helpline is very much a part of Bernardo's. It's a helpline that sits within the larger Bernardo's world. Bernardo's has 800 different services across the UK, and the BOLO helpline is just one of them. And the helpline offer is it's virtual, and the therapy or the counselling that we offer is virtual as well. So anybody right across the UK can access that support very easily.
Fantastic. Andrew, I'm not sure all our guests will realise just how valuable this service is, because currently, as we mentioned earlier, there is a kind of mental health epidemic going on. Some of it seemed to be an outworking of the pandemic. So before the pandemic, I think it was 1 in 9 children was recognised as having some kind of mental health disorder. And then after the pandemic, that seemed to increase to 1 in 6. And our children and adolescents mental health services haven't leveled up, if you like, to accommodate that. So the fact that you're offering a counselling service that is able to see people in 2 weeks is best in class. It's better than almost any local authority can offer. So friends, please, this is a fantastic offer. If you're recognising that your children have a need that kind of fit into the categories Andrew was outlining, please make use of it, because it's absolute gold dust, and we recommend it to you thoroughly. So thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you to Bernardo's for joining us. And thank you, everybody. We've had an incredible time. What a range of fantastic speakers. We've heard from children, and they made us smile and laugh as they complained about the weather, but celebrated they had less homework than in Hong Kong. That was beautiful. We've heard from parents. We're grateful for parents being very open about some of the challenges they faced coming to the UK. I hope it helps you know, as someone said, it's okay not to be okay, and it's not wrong to go and access the support that you need. You've heard from clinical psychologists, you've heard from educational experts, and so today we've had a real 360 degree view of how we can help our children to flourish here in the UK. And as you heard right from the beginning, from the government to civil society to churches to professional services, we're all here for you. And if there's more that we can do to support, we're keen to help. We want this to be a fantastic movement to the United Kingdom. But you also heard a bit of a challenge. There are other groups of children that are moving to the UK at the same time as you, and they're facing some really big challenges. People from refugee backgrounds, and I guess that's part of our opportunity, isn't it? As you arrive here, we want to care for your needs, but we're keen that you might help other needs that are out there in the communities. And you heard a call to action to get involved in your local school, to play your part, to be part of this society that you're joining. That will be great for you and your English and your sense of well-being, but you'll also be able to make a positive difference in the schools that you've joined. So fantastic to have you here. Don't forget The fabulous welcome book is available to you, and you can get that free. Just sign up for it here at the website. UKHK is running a few more events in this kind of tranche of funding that we've got from the Department of Levelling Up, including some friendship festivals taking place around the UK. I think there's one left in Milton Keynes and another one in London. And if you visit the ukhk.org website, you'll be able to see them there. We also have another professional integration event where we're going to be talking about how to use LinkedIn to your most effective way of getting a new job here in the United Kingdom. If we can help you with that, we'd love to see you there too. So huge thank you to all of our speakers. You might want to say thanks in the comments, and this video will be available to you in the future. But thank you so much to everybody. Thank you to you for coming, and we hope you feel welcome. That's our vision and our ambition. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we wish you every blessing and every success as you set up life here with us. Thanks.